to our STEAM panel members and to our research advisor, Ma'am Luz Tugade, good day. For today's major academic practice, we will present our final research paper entitled College Students' Behavior Towards COVID-19 from Selected Universities in Manila. I am Nika Lorraine M. Asia.
I am Ira Jessamay R. Julian.
And I am Gail Tope.
And we are the Group 6. Let's start with the Chapter 1, The Problem and Its Background. The coronavirus disease 2019 was declared a pandemic on March 11, 2020 due to its high rates of infection. So, the government taken action that brought up a new health and protocols restriction to reduce and avoid coronavirus. This includes wear a face cloth covering in a public spaces, stay at least 6 feet from other people, and frequently wash your hands. Many nations have suspended face-to-face teaching and exams, as well as restriction on immigration affecting students of BS Tourism Management. Here's some brief background of our study. COVID-19 pandemic has created a lot of challenges in our educational system worldwide. The Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, gave an academic freedom to the Higher Education Institute, wherein distance learning, e-learning, and other alternative modes for delivery to the students is implemented. The CHED new system changed the way how instructors teach and engage students. The willingness of the students to learn is as much influenced by the behavior to accomplish their task easily. Let us now move on to the theoretical framework of our study. Who do I want to become during COVID-19? By Canales. Canales' theory provides a framework on how individuals are effectively responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fear, learning, and growth zones are the 3 zones that make up this theory. In the fear zone, people may experience anxiety about the current pandemic and in the future. The second stage is the learning zone. Canales suggests that in order to move forward in this stage, persons should let go some of their fear-based convulsions. The last stage is the growth zone. Canales stated that this is the final zone, where individuals are starting to discover their whys. Next, the conceptual framework. This figure displayed the representation of the diagram that was used by the researcher in the study, that served as a guide throughout their research. In the input, the researchers formulated a survey questionnaire wherein demographic profile and questions about the extent of the students' behavior towards COVID-19 in terms of fear, learning, and growth zone will address the objectives of the study. Then, the second element, which is the process, pertains to the instrument used to gather data, analysis, interpretations, and evaluations. Lastly, the output. The prime purpose of the study: assess the behavior of the students toward COVID-19 and propose intervention to manage students' behavior. Statement of the problem. Our study aims to determine the behavior of BS and Tourism Management college students in selected universities in Manila during COVID-19. Sub-problems. What is the demographic profile of the respondents according to universities, age, gender, and status as students? 2. What is the extent of students' behavior towards COVID-19 according to the dimensions of fear, learning, and growth? 3. Is there significant difference in the perceptions of the extent of students' behavior towards COVID-19 during the stage when grouped according to their demographic profiles? And last, what intervention is necessary to address the students' fear, learning, and growth amidst COVID-19 based on the findings. Hypothesis: there's no significant difference in the perception of the students when grouped according to their demographic profiles. Scope and limitation: the study is limited to 5 different universities in Manila, which are PUP, FEU, PLM, UST, and LPU. The first 200 tourism college students in each university to fill up with our prepared survey questionnaire with an age of 18 to 24 years old will be the respondents. The result of the study were deemed significant to the following: school administrators, professors and teachers, tourism college students, parents, community, and future researchers.
COVID-19 pandemic, a recently identified novel coronavirus, was first detected in late 2019 in Wuhan, China. MERS-CoV, a zoonotic illness thought to have originated from snakes, bats, and pangolins. COVID-19 now belongs to the same family. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought a huge impact to human health and affects economies, societies, and families around the world. Tourism management is a multidisciplinary field. College students majoring in this field of study are prepared with expertise, commitment, and skills for management, marketing, and operations positions in the expanding industry that provides foods, accommodations, and tourism services to people away from home. Researchers investigate among general population. COVID-19 transmission fear has facilitated the development of psychiatric symptoms such as depression, confusion, stress, and anxiety among individuals who have never previously experienced mental illness. Therefore, it can be stated that the student's emotion is influenced by the public health emergencies, which necessitates adequate devotions and support from authorities. Extent of the student's fear response towards COVID-19. Fear is an adaptive emotion that mobilizes energy in response to a possible threat. According to the previous study, they stated that the pandemic situation causes stress and anxiety to mass population, particularly to healthcare professionals and college students. Extent of the students' learning response towards COVID-19. Every individual can achieve acceptance by moving into the stretch zone where they can grow. The growing zone is the ultimate and healthiest zone in which we all should seek. Perception of the students' behavior towards COVID-19 in terms of their demographic profiles. Students' perceptions and behaviors are affected by the spread of pandemic. People between the ages of 18 and 30 years old and those over 60 years old had the highest COVID-19 peritraumatic distress index scores. Gender also influenced the effects of emotional problems in students. Students with financial difficulties experience psychological distress. Intervention to manage the students' behavior towards COVID-19. To provide an adequate response, public health surveillance must include strategies during and after this pandemic for mental health awareness. The SDGs. The SDG number 3, well-being and health, and the SDG number 4, quality education will benefit in this study.
This chapter presents the research methodologies used in the study. This includes the research design, population, sample size and sample technique, description of respondents, research instrument, data gathering procedure, and the statistical treatment of data. For our research design, we use descriptive quantitative. Descriptive quantitative is a specific method because it has fulfilled the rules such as concrete or empirical, objective, measurable, rational, and systematic. This method is called quantitative because the research data are numerical analysis. Our respondents were college students from 5 selected universities taking up Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management. For our population and sampling, we derived through quota and purposive sampling techniques, both non-probability methods. The responses of 200 students, each from 5 selected universities, offering the Bachelor of Science in Tourism program, which generated a total of 1,000 students. Research instrument. The research instrument study was prepared as online survey form to determine the students' behavior towards COVID-19 pandemic. Online survey is more convenient and often prepared by respondents because they can answer at their convenient time at their own pace, which means it can help to increase the response rates. For our survey instrument, our survey form was composed of 19 items. The survey form was divided into two parts, the socio-demographic profile and the behavioral zone, which are the fear, learning, and growth zone. The following Likert scale implies strongly agree, which has a scale value of 4, agree with a scale value of 3, disagree with a scale value of 2, and strongly disagree with a scale value of 1. For data treatment, we use inferential statistics. Inferential statistics are often used to compare the differences between the treatment groups. To determine the collected data, we use the following statistics. Number 1 is the frequency and percentage distribution. It is used to determine the frequency of the response to the number of the actual responses. The formula was percentage is equals to frequency divided by the total number of the respondents times 100, which was constant. The next one is the Kruskal-Wallis test. It is a non-parametric test of whether more than two independent groups differ. It is a non-parametric version of one-way independent ANOVA. R is the sum of the rank of each group. N is the sample size, and N is the sample size of a particular group, which means Kruskal-Wallis test is based on rank data. Data gathering timetable. The quantitative data are derived through online survey, questionnaire, to substantiate the numerical findings of the study. Ethical practices. The important information of the respondents was secured for the intent of the study only. For phase and validity content, it includes expert looking at the questionnaires items and evaluating whether the measure items match at any given conceptual domain of the concept. For our reliability test, we use Crodbach's alpha. The top half portion of the equation is simply the number of items squared multiplied by the average covariance between items. The bottom half portion is just the total number of the item variance and item covariance. For statistical program use, a statistical package for social sciences or SPSS version 19 was used for the entire statistical result for this study.
Let's move forward. The chapter 4, Presentation, Analysis, and Interpretation of Data. This chapter reveals, analyzes, and interprets the gathered data through the survey questionnaires and observations. Subproblem 1, what is the demographic profile of the respondents? Table 1 shows the distribution of the respondents according to the status of students, gender, age, and schools. Table 1 shows the frequency and percentage distributions of the students in 5 schools under considerations. The full-time students had 67.9%, which was almost twice the percentage of the working student and nearly 10 times the self-employed student. The sum of frequency of working and self-employed students was just half of the number of full-time students. This implies that majority of the samples are fully concentrated to their studies. As you can see, in the gender category, the number of female respondents was almost twice the number of their counterpart. This suggests that there are more female students taking tourism course in the group. Nyarawata evidenced that tourism is a significant source of job for women. The arrangement of age categories is immaterial. The age category 21 had 303 students participated or 30.3% and followed closely by 22 to 24 years old with 259 students or 25.9%. The remaining percentage of 43.8 belonged to 18, 19, and 20 years old. Sub-problem 2. What is the extent of students' behavior towards COVID-19 according to the dimension of fear, learning, and growth? Table 2. Frequency and percentage distributions of response concerning the students' behavioral reaction in the fear zone. Table 2 depicts the mode of each of the students' behavioral response in the fear zone. Because the data was ordinal, the mode was used. This suggests that the students are able to manage their fear of COVID-19 as indicated by their responses ranging from disagree to strongly disagree. As this study took place on June 2021, which is almost 18 months after the World Health Organization confirmed the first record case outside of China. It can be construed the students have somehow adapted. Table 3. Frequency and percentage response concerning students' behavioral reaction in the learning zone during COVID-19. As you can see on this table, the majority of the perceptions of the respondents were agree and strongly disagree, which means that the respondents are very particular when it comes to their health and their emotions. This is intensely supported by Learning Zone 6, which had 80.6%. Results indicate that students had acquired to some extent the understanding and awareness in rationalizing the new situation brought by the pandemic.
As presented in Table 4, it shows the mode for the growth zone. Again, the statistic mode was used to find out the direction of the perception of the participants from selected universities in Manila. All of the target variables reflect strongly agree. The statement, "I practice quietude, patience, relationships, and creativity" attains the highest mode of 65.9%. However, the statement, "I make my talents available to those who need them" rank last with 53.5%. In general, the results imply a positive and strong motivation among the respondents to overcome all fears. As presented in Table 5, the computed chi-square values age, the statistic of Kruskal-Wallis age test, which determines whether the groups are significantly different or not in terms of their group medians for the fear zone. For the age, school, and status groups, the 5 dependent variable values were higher than the tabular value of 9.49 and 5.59 respectively. Since the obtained age values of dependent variables were greater than the tabular values, this implies that one or more of the groups dominate or has the highest median value. Furthermore, this explains that the group medians of the groups are significant. Table 6 shows the computed chi-square, computed p-value, and the interpretation of the learning growth zone according to demographic profile. The Kruskal-Wallis age test was used to determine if significant differences exist. For age and status groups, Learning Zone 4 had a fail to reject the null hypothesis, which means that the perception of the participants were the same when it comes to the information evaluation. However, the 4 Learning Zone did not support the hypothesis when it comes to self-control, emotion, situation awareness, and recognition. For the gender group, Learning Zones 2, 4, and 5 had a fail to reject the null hypothesis. The failure to reject the hypothesis implies that the following responses were common for both gender, where the learning zones 1, 3, and 6 resulted to the non-acceptance of the null hypothesis. In this group, the gender had different opinion when it comes to emotions, recognition, and control. For the school group, all of the obtained age values were higher than the critical value of 5.59, which suggests that the group's medians were different from each other and they came from different population in terms of control, consuming food, emotion, awareness, information evaluation, and best recognition.
Table 7 presents obtained chi-square values, computed p-values, and the interpretation of the growth zone as perceived by the respondents. For the age group, there were 4 questions that had a fail to reject the null hypothesis. These responses were helpfulness, sharedness, focuses, and adaption. The questions with regards to empathy, emotional, and appreciation had to support the alternative hypothesis. For the gender group, the questions about talents, emotional state, and adaptation had a fail to reject the null hypothesis. On the other hand, they were different in terms of seeing other needs, focus, being empathic, appreciation, practicing quietude, patience, and creativity. According to the student's status, 5 questions received a fail to reject the null hypothesis. This means that there was no significance existed among the group medians. In the school group, all the questions had the alternative hypothesis except question 7. Propose intervention to manage students' behavior. The objectives is to provide an intervention to manage the students' behavior, to minimize the impact of COVID-19 in terms of the students' behavior, and lastly is to cope up and strengthen the mental and behavioral stage of the students. The plan of action composed of three parts which includes improved mental health, adapted to the changes in the new normal, and enhanced productivity. The impact of this intervention program will greatly help in order to create a new set of guidelines to be a better person in this time of pandemic and use in the future in order to succeed. In monitoring and evaluation, checklists and tracking these will greatly help in order to know where they are.
Study revealed that the majority of the status of the students are full-time, dominated by the female students belonging to the Gen Z. There are equal numbers of the respondents in the 5 selected universities for this study. The students manifest the most favorable behavior in growth zone, followed by learning zone and least in the fear zone. In the growth zone, the greatest number of the respondents choose to reflect, be creative, and appreciate others. However, they opt to use their talents for their own benefits. In the learning zone, the students generally recognize the strong desire of people to overcome this pandemic situation. However, they feel that they have to remain optimistic despite of this situation. In the fear zone, the students tend to overcome this behavior. In the fear zone, there is a significant difference in the behavioral response of the students when grouped according to their age, school, and status as a group.
Arrive on the following conclusions. College students have varying socio-demographic factors which also play the essential function in the student sensitivity of the different aspect of behavior impact of COVID-19 as the empirical results suggests. Second, the COVID-19 pandemic causes major repercussions for the way higher education students live and work, disturbing their physical and mental well-being in overwhelming circumstances. Overall, these results suggest that COVID-19 represents a substantial disruption to students' academic and personal experiences, and is likely to have lasting impacts through changes in the academic and family setting.
From the drawn conclusion, the following recommendations are hereby directed and concluded. First, all authorities involved in the higher education system and the well-being of students who constitute an extremely important segment of the population should prepare a set of proactive measures in the higher education arena. Second, the students need to reach out to their parents and teachers to help them manage any adverse behavioral outcomes brought by the pandemic. Third, parents have to maintain continuous communications and monitoring of students' behavior and performance through guidance and counseling to avoid mental breakdowns. Fourth, academic, administrators and teachers may design more engaging online learning activities to divert the students' attention towards more productive academic outcomes using virtual platforms. And last, future researchers may replicate this study to a larger student population to a more valid generalizations. Thank you for your kind attention to our presentation. We are now ready to consider your increase and suggestion.